Fanzone, united by the game, powered by Moore's World of Sport.
Happy New Year to all of you tuning in to the Fanzone podcast. We hope you guys had a fun and happy festive season. Today we're diving into the Zimbabwean sporting landscape as it's the first month of 2026. What's coming up in the sporting world and also the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League is just around the corner. My name is Sips.
And I'm Steve Vickers. Africa Cup of Nations continues in Morocco without our Warriors, of course. So much to talk about, big games to look forward to. And Larry Mangenje is back. He was there exclusively for Fanzone. Welcome back, Larry.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's good to be back on the show.
Yeah, you must have lots of stories.
A lot, plenty of them, eh?
Right, we're going to dig into those. Simba Chiminya is with us as well, StarFM sportscaster. There's a whole load of rumours, transfers happening in the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. We're going to dig into some of those. Thabo Senong officially is now the Highlanders coach.
Yes, indeed, and we spoke about it last year, or should say last month, and he was heading to Zimbabwe, and it came to fruition, and he's the Highlanders coach, and the assistant also Mkokeli Dube, as we said it.
So lots and lots happening in the PSL.
Yeah, so much happening in the PSL. But Larry, as we said, you were in Morocco, Marrakesh and Agadir.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you, also keeping up with the Warriors?
Yeah, it was a good experience, plenty of things to learn. New culture, new country, a different vibe, new food. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very, very good experience. The greatest tournament in African football, being in Morocco. Yeah, I had a good experience. Of course, disappointed by the fact that the Warriors did not proceed to the knockout stages. But yeah, good experience overall.
Yeah, indeed. And you also got to meet a couple of people while you were there. We saw you in an interview with Marmoush, the Manchester City player.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet anyone else there as well?
Yeah, a lot of big name stars. Mohamed Salah, of course, was there. Plays for Egypt as well. He was there. I also went to the Ivory Coast Cameroon game where Kylian Mbappe was in attendance. So obviously, yeah, it was a good experience. Big name players, a good tournament and a good experience overall.
Tell us about level of organisation. When I come back from a tournament like that, it's like a reverse culture shock because it's been world-class stadiums, superbly organised. What did you experience?
Well, I think CAF did fairly well, but I was not happy with the organization from the Moroccan authorities specifically, especially in terms of transportation from point A to B. We had a lot of problems with my colleagues heading back to the hotel from the Cote d'Ivoire Cameroon game. We had to walk close to a distance of 8 kilometers.
Oh.
Yeah, because we struggled to get a taxi. It was late and all, but yeah, I think in that regard, obviously, the Moroccan authorities can and should do better. But overall, I think CAF, in terms of the organization, spot on.
Right, getting visas was an issue for many,
Getting visas, that application was not working for a lot of people. A lot of people had to spend money through agents. Otherwise, getting that visa was a very, very complicated process. It actually hindered a lot of people from eventually traveling to Morocco to watch the games.
And the pitches, some of the games it has rained and rained, but the pitches managed to handle all of those downpours, and it seemed to be conducive to good football as well.
Indeed, in terms of football pitches, Morocco is one of the best in the country, if you ask me. Even the turfs, everything. There was a lot of rain. Even if you watched the South Africa Cameroon game yesterday, there was a lot of downpour, but you could actually tell that there was never a point in time where you would see water on the pitch or something like that. So in terms of infrastructure, in terms of pitches overall, I think the Moroccan authorities are one of the best in Africa. Yeah.
Of course, this sort of is a step towards them hosting the World Cup.
Indeed.
As well.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a good start, and I think if they correct certain things, they will be ready to host the World Cup. Yeah.
Right. So you must have seen a lot of stuff with the Warriors, I guess. Anything, you're going to tell us more on Larry's look at the league as well. Indeed. On your show, but anything behind the scenes you can reveal to us?
Look, obviously the debate centers around why Tawanda Maswani did not take part that much. He came on as a substitute against Egypt. I think didn't feature against Angola, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah, he did then start against South Africa and was brilliant. I think there was a lot that was happening behind the scenes in terms of why he was not playing. I think it was a case of the attitude in terms of what the coach had to say, because the coach said a lot of things off record that no, that boy, I'll tell you guys one day. So I think there was some issues which were not really technical in terms of why he didn't start or take part in the first two games. Yeah, so a lot to learn from for the Warriors, but I feel this was a tournament in which we had the best chance to proceed to the knockout stages of the tournament. Because if you look at the way we played against Egypt, we should have gotten a point against Egypt. We should have won the Angola game. We missed a glut of goal-scoring opportunities. And look, against South Africa, everybody knows what happened. It was a winnable game.
Yeah. And Tanzania got through with 2 points.
Indeed.
If we hadn't conceded that goal to South Africa, we would have
we would have progressed. So, very, very, very disappointing from a Zimbabwean perspective. And the Warriors should have done better, if you ask me.
And so, Larry, before you went to Morocco, you were skeptical of Coach Mario. How are you feeling towards him now in like sort of brief sense?
From a technical viewpoint, I think the team was not really that bad. For the sake of continuity, I think this coach should be given a lot of time. There were indications that the team has some sort of direction in terms of how they executed themselves. The problem is we went there without a lot of our key players. I think you guys discussed that on the show. Marsha was not there. Jay-Z was not there. And he pulled out of the tournament at the 11th hour. I think with all the players in place, I think this coach can take us somewhere in terms of where we go as Zimbabwe.
Yeah, well, interesting. Well, more to look forward to on Larry's look at the league.
Yeah.
But yeah, Steve, round of 16 continues.
Yeah.
Some tough results there. South Africa losing to Cameroon 2-1. Did not expect that one.
Yeah, I don't know why we're all enjoying the fact that South Africa got knocked out, but we're getting some pleasure from that, Simba, yeah.
But for me, I'm still disappointed that, we failed to beat South Africa, because what happened against Cameroon showed us that that game that we lost, we could still have won that game, or at least got a point out of that game. For me, I'm still disappointed. Yes, South Africa are failing to go beyond the last 16. I didn't read much into it. My disappointment was on our part, on the thing that we failed to do ourselves rather than South Africa. And, their minister saying all sorts of things and saying that against Zimbabwe it was supposed to be war. We celebrated when we drew against them in the World Cup qualifiers. But for me, I'm still disappointed in ourselves that we failed to beat South Africa when they were not really good. Because in that game against Cameroon came in with a game plan, they executed it and got the 3 points.
Yep. South Africa squandered chances early. We shouldn't laugh about it too much. They'll be one of the African teams at the World Cup this year, so we need them to be doing well at the highest stage of all. Another World Cup team going out to Tunisia, losing on penalties after extra time to Mali, who are in the quarterfinals without having won a single game. They've drawn all of their matches,
Yes,
Simba.
I was about to say the same thing when it comes to the Warriors, that, you just go in there, just have belief in yourself, and, just think that with a bit of lady luck, we can go through. They had all draws in their group games, a draw again against Tunisia, go to the penalty shootout. You have luck. And I was just looking at them and saying that they are the Dynamos of the Africa Cup of Nations. You can draw all the way, and probably who knows next, in their quarterfinals, they can have another draw, go to the penalty shootouts, and you're through to the semi-finals.
Well, their coach Tom Sanfier, who almost became Warriors coach some years back, he said they can win it without winning a single game, taking all of the games to penalties in the knockout stage. Yeah, Sami Trabelsi, Tunisia coach, the first to be fired. There'll probably be many more casualties in the coming week or two. Senegal going about their business very quietly for me, Sips.
Yeah, but no, Steve, I want to actually come back to the point of Mali and Cameroon qualifying on draws, Cameroon only on 2 points. Does that not say something about African football at the moment? Like, are we not scoring enough goals? How are teams progressing through to a knockout stage when there's only draws? And how does this shape up for the World Cup that's going to be in a couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, Mali, very defensive. They haven't been creating many chances. Definitely, that's just the approach that the coach took there. They've got plenty of talent, but I think they're going to have to up their game. And when you've got these best third-place teams qualifying, it does lend itself to being a bit more negative, I think, isn't it, Larry? Because one win, or even in some cases 2 draws, can take you through.
Yeah, very, very interesting indeed. Yeah, I also want to add a footnote to what Simba was saying about South Africa. I was not really surprised that South Africa were knocked out by Cameroon. I attended their coach, Hugo Bross's post-match press conference after the win over Zimbabwe. He wasn't convinced either. He was very, very clear in saying that if we perform like the way we performed against Zimbabwe in the knockout stages, we are definitely going to make it. South Africa have not been really that brilliant. They conceded in every game at AFCON. They conceded twice against Zimbabwe, and they conceded twice yesterday against Cameroon. So, as much as we should enjoy their exit, I don't think they deserve to proceed anyway.
Yeah, Coach Hugo Bruce, the South Africa coach, made some strange comments as well.
He did.
A couple of times he said, I'm not feeling the vibe of this AFCON compared to others. I don't know what he was talking about exactly, but he complained that it was 45 minutes from the hotel to the stadium, which I don't think is actually anything unusual at all, actually.
Yeah, he was complaining about a lot of things. He spent about 3 days complaining about that not awarded penalty against Egypt.
Right.
Yeah, he was very, very, very much critical of the way the referee handled the game. He spent 3 days complaining about the very same thing. So I think it was a way for him to try and sway the referees to be in their line against Zimbabwe. But he's a very, very outspoken fella, if you ask me, and he complains about everything.
I think when you look at it, he really knew pretty well that his team was not the best, in the best shape that they were in 2023, and he kind of knew the struggles that are going to come in there. So to try and divert attention from him and the team, he also wanted to put the attention on other people like the referees and other teams, and also the organizers of the tournament. And just coming back to the point that you alluded to, Sips, on the teams going through with 2 points or so. But if you look at this tournament in the group stages, there have been a number of goals that have been scored compared to the other tournaments. Like this time, I think I was about around 83 goals scored in the group stages, up from around 68 that were scored in the previous tournaments. But I think the only issue is about the third best placed teams now progressing through. And when you're at that tournament, with a bit of luck, you can improve as the tournament progresses. We saw it with Ivory Coast, the previous tournament. They struggled in the group stages, but from the knockout stages going onwards, they were able to get some wins. So this can also happen to other teams that are there.
Yeah. So the first 4 matches at this time of recording, the first 4 matches of the round of 16 have been played. And my, thank goodness I did not do my predictions, because I would have got all of them wrong. Obviously South Africa being knocked out. But a person who seems to really be enjoying his predictions is Maestro 29, all the way at the top at 264 points. And also some other recognizable names here who played the Moors PSL predictor. It is Vamatsa in 6th place, as well as Timola in 9th, or rather 7th, and he wasn't in the top 16, but they were there. So lots of predictions to do, Steve.
Yeah.
How have your predictions been?
I'm on fire, Sips. At the time of recording, I'm number 36.
Wow.
I am going for glory. I got the Cameroon-South Africa scoreline correct. I nailed it at 2-1.
Did you get your joker?
It wasn't my joker, unfortunately. I had Senegal with the wrong scoreline, so I got 14 points there. But I'm gunning for a top 25 finish, I think. Yeah, it's some of these have been really difficult to predict, actually. It's been quite a tricky one.
Yeah, well, guys, keep doing your predictions. There's also Fofo 10, who came in the top 16. They walked away with a TV during the Moors PSL predictor. They're sitting in 2nd place. So if you're feeling jealous, you want to win something, whether it's a TV, a speaker, more prizes to come, make sure you go to fanzone.co.zw, get to the AFCON tab and do your predictions. And with it being officially 2026, the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League season is just around the corner, and the players and coaches have been doing the rounds. So many things shaking up. Breaking news coming in over from the weekend is that Clifford Dzvairo, the man who saw FC Hunters through to the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, has now jumped ship and moved to Ngezi Platinum. Simba, is there something going on here? Because we know that Ngezi already, they have struggling with money. They have to pay almost $200,000. So why would Clifford move to Ngezi Platinum from FC Hunters?
If a coach or a player is moving to a team that many people are losing confidence in, it shows you about the situation at the team that is leaving. It shows something about what's happening at Hunters.
Maybe. There was also a time and point, there was a rumor that Ngombe Water wanted to buy FC Hunters. Could this be playing a part? Do you think maybe there's still something?
The thing is, we might not be seeing Hunters in the PSL this year. And the franchise is up for tax, and negotiations have been happening. And it seems like Harare City have been the front runners, overtook Ngombe Water for that franchise. So it's just a matter of days. An announcement is going to be made whether it's Harare City or Ngombe Awara, because Ngombe Awara seemed like they had agreed, or they were front runners for that title, but for that franchise, but things broke down in terms of negotiations and then ended Harare City. And it seems like Harare City, they've almost like agreed on everything with FC Hunters, and that's the reason why you haven't had any news coming in from FC Hunters in as far as signing of players is concerned.
Yeah, that's interesting to see from FC Hunters and from Clifford Dzvairo. Larry, we know that you're very busy in Morocco, but still no word from Dynamos as to who will be replacing the head coach position. It's open, it's vacant. Has there been any rumors milling around as to who's going to assume that position?
Yeah, I have it on good authority that they are negotiating with Callisto Pasua for a return to Dynamos. Remember, Pasua was in the country recently. They actually held a meeting to that effect. They want him back. He told them what he wanted for him to come back. So it's still very possible, I can tell you. Callisto Pasua can actually come to Dynamos. It's very, very possible.
What about his contract issues with Malawi as national team coach?
Yeah, that's the bone of contention. Obviously, Dynamos have to pay out that contract. Supposedly, there's a new sponsor coming on board. Remember, there's a new executive at Dynamos after the exit of the Moses Maungani is the lead executive. So a lot of things at Dynamos are happening, and don't be surprised if they will be one of the dark horses this season.
Really? Okay, well, that'll be interesting to see. Obviously, maybe Callisto Pasua coming back to Dynamos, but there is a player that they will be fighting to keep on board. A little bit more on him later. But exciting things for the coaches. FC Platinum now have Joe Lupatla at the helm. For Scotland FC, it's Norma Peza. Hard Rock, it's Calvin Kayendu. Simba Bora, Mandla Mpofu. Chickenin, it is now officially Tonderayi Ndiraya. It was rumoured, but he has now put pen to paper. He'll be there for the 2026 season. And Caps United takes Shorty Rugby. And obviously, most recently, Clifford Dzvairo to Ngezi Platinum. So 2026 is going to be a heck of a season, Steve.
Yes, it is. A lot of changes there. Ndiraya, one or two signings mooted so far. I think he wants to do a bit of rebuilding at Chicken Inn. He wants to make history, winning 3 consecutive titles with 3 different clubs, which would be amazing. But I think it's going to be tough. But 1 or 2 possible signings already, Simba.
Yeah, and for Chicken Inn, I think Marvelous Fernando are going from Yada to Chicken Inn. There's also Vasily Kawe said to be on his way there to Chicken Inn. And there's also a possibility that most of the players that were with Tonderayi Ndiraya at Scotland will also be crossing over to Chicken Inn. And on Clifford Dzvairo is most likely going there as an assistant to Kumbere Mtuyokuziwa at Ngezi Platinum Stars. But lots of movements, and you're talking about Dynamos. There's also a possibility that Walter Msona can switch to Dynamos from Scotland.
Wow.
Really?
And there's a billiard coming in to Dynamos, and not Kama, but Stanley Billiard from Malawi.
Wow, related?
I'm not really sure, but ancestral maybe.
All right.
Because, you know, the Billiard and Kama's origins are from Malawi. And there's also a Kofi Annan, Papa Kofi Annan, coming from
Kofi
Ghana.
Annan?
That's a big name.
Oh.
Coming from Ghana to Dynamos. And, Dynamos, it seems like Vincent Chawons has been doing a lot of things. He hit the ground running after being appointed the chairman, and trying to have some players at Dynamos. So some also other former players that have been with other clubs might also be coming to back to Dynamos. So just wait to see this week who would have really signed.
Wow, and pre-season starting later this month, yeah?
Actually, probably starting later this week or next week So most of the teams will now be starting their pre-season this week or next week. And you also have FC Platinum as well. They are also having players coming in from Cameroon, Ghana as well.
Wow.
And you also have Hard Rock. They'll be starting their pre-season this week. And Simba as well. They'll be having 1 or 2 players from Kenya and Namibia.
Wow.
So lots of things being shaked up before the 2026 PSL
and Martin
season.
Mapise as well, moving from Moz to Hard Rock,
Wow.
Yeah.
following Nigel Martina.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, that was a big shock for the Moz FC community. Losing
Yeah,
both
quite a
of them.
loss. Martina, one of the most skillful players.
Yeah, but so that's 2 midfielders they've lost, Moffat and Martina, but they
Yeah.
do have a couple of other players in there. So it'll be interesting to see how everyone dives into the season, how everyone adjusts, and obviously the pre-season is going to be very, very important. There's also news from Manica Diamonds as well. Tafadzwa Mashidi is also standing in as like a substantive interim sort of coach. Do you think that, how long do you think he'll have in the season?
I think the fact that he managed to save them from relegation is the reason why they said that they are going to give him, a contract. He's a substantive coach, and he is kind of already started, signing the players that he wants, the likes of Fitzgerald Banda from
Bikita
Minerals, and he has also been trying to get the likes of Athan Love from Highlanders, and it seems like Highlanders, the players are leaving. Melikai Ngobe also leaving, going to Bulawayo Chiefs. So for Manica Diamonds, I think the coach has been given a pace to say, sign the players that you want, and we are going to give you all the support that you need.
Yeah, geez. So lots of exciting things to look forward to as we build up to the 2026 Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. But it's also a build-up to the Under-20 Paramount Garment League coming up later this month in January. And joining us for that discussion is rugby analyst Jeffrey Murimbechi. Yes, the Under-20 League is upon us later this January, and to break down some of the things that are coming up, players, teams to look out for, is rugby analyst Jeffrey Murimbechi. Jeffrey, thank you for joining us. We know that you do a lot for Zimbabwean rugby, and you've gone lots of places with the Sables, but looking at the Under-20 League coming up first, how's it shaping up to be? We know that's definitely been a tournament that has been used to uplift rugby development, but this year, I think we could be seeing something different.
Yes, it's a lot different this year. There's something called the Grassroots to Greatness program, where we've had young players from all the way from under 16 sort of knocking at the door of under 20s. So the numbers and the quality of players that are coming this year is much greater. If you look at the results that under 20s have been having at national team level or even at league level, you had a lot of 18-year-olds and a lot of 17-year-olds that were playing in that league. So you can imagine players that have had 2 or 3 years in that same league. The same thing we saw with the likes of Dion Kumalo, who played as an under-20 for about 3 years. So it's going to be really intense. And above all things, I know we're discussing under-20s, but it's also knocking on the door, because in 2027, these boys are also eligible for selection for the Men's World Cup in Australia. So it's a lot more than them just making it to the Under-20 World Cup. And it starts from tournaments such as these, and then it keeps going on.
Yeah, looking at the Under-20 League and the tournaments and the new talent that's coming through, we've seen that Sean D'Souza in the past couple of years, he's opened up a lot of opportunities for the Under-20s. Last year, the Outback Barbarians came here to Zim. They also played against the Under-20 Sharks Academy. And just recently, in December, they ventured to Dubai to play in the World Schools Festival, which is a great exposure for them. Yeah, sure, results didn't go our way, but I think you learn more when you lose. How do these sort of opportunities come about for the Under-20s?
I think you have to create them, and I'm very happy that the results came out that way when we went for the Schools Festival in December, because it really shows us where we are. It's a big yardstick of where we are as a nation. You can play as much in Zimbabwe and South Africa as you want to, but if you're not playing against the rest of the world, you are, yards behind. To create these sort of opportunities, you need to keep inviting more international schools to come through. There is a rumor that I believe Falcon College and Peterhouse will be having a couple of schools coming through as well. the structure of our under-20s is closely tied to our school structure. And we play rugby in the winter only, in the second term, whereas the rest of the world have rugby league being played, rugby union, being played throughout the rest of the year. So for us to make up for these things, we have to have these tournaments around January, these tournaments in December, so that we make up and level up with the rest of the world.
Yeah, and it's very important that you brought up the fact that if you don't play against the rest of the world, you never be up to that standard. And obviously that we haven't qualified for the World Championship the past 2 years. We haven't had that international exposure. It's just been Barts, where it's just African countries. And, the rugby in Africa, other than South Africa, it's a huge divide. So to close that gap is also very important. And, looking again at these young players, you say some of them will be eligible for the 2027 Rugby World Cup. It's going to be hard for them to get picked. There are lots of players who might come from abroad. But looking at the sort of names there, who do you think we will see in Sables jerseys within the next 5 years or so?
I don't think I could drop a pin on specific names, but I would like you to see the difference between when players move from under-20 setups and start playing internationally. We had a young man, Manyarara. He was Nyasha Manyarara. He was a regular under-20, was the same size as everyone else. But the moment he crossed over and started playing in a professional league, he jumped from this level to that level. And that's exactly what we've seen. Edward Segauke, I'll keep naming the players that are in the Sables because I've seen them changing from being schoolboy type of players to being these phenomenal international players. And this is exactly what's happening. And there are conversations that have been going on for a very long time between Coach Sean D'Souza of the under-20s and Peter Bernard from the Sables. And these guys somewhat have a synchronized way of training players, such that Peter is heavily invested in what Sean is doing, because from his players, he gets the notes from Sean to say he is ripe for this and that, and they find a way to work out the structure. So in as much as the results won't come for under-20s in the next 2 or 3 years, and I think Zimbabweans should be patient about that. Results for under-20s will start coming 3 years from now. But in the meantime, they're all working to feed into a greater structure.
So we should be patient. So it's possible to be playing under-20 league in the coming season and to be at the World Cup next year. Is that realistic?
It's very possible because there are a lot of gaps. I will say from the analysis from Rugby Africa Cup the last time, we didn't have very good and consistent locks. We had guys such as Tiriona Guashu having to play a position that is not his. And the rumor mill keeps coming. Who is going to fill out these places? Do we have the size? Do we have the temperament? And also we want to go with a lot of young players. You can look at the Sables. We've got some aged players. We've got players in their mid-30s, and we're not exactly sure if they will make it for the 2027.
Well, and getting out the country is the key, is what you're saying in terms of increasing your level of performance.
That's very true. You've seen this in football, and that's just the way rugby is. Unlike cricket, which is heavily resourced and needs local funding for it to work, we've seen a vast difference between players that have been exposed to professional structures. Players such as Farai Mdariki, players such as Tapiwa Mafura, Tinotenda Mavesere. He used to play in the same under-20 league. He played for Harare Sports Club and then got into the Sharks setup. Trust me, Varsity Cup. Within those 6 to 7 months, at some point in time, if my stats are accurate, he once gained 11 kgs of lean muscle in 10 weeks.
Wow.
And he came back the beast that he is, that can replace Sia Kolisi. It's because of the resources, the structure. To be honest, I think we don't say this enough. Our rugby in Zimbabwe is still amateur. And when I say amateur, we don't have people with contracts. So if Steve Vickers is supposed to play for Old Georgians on Saturday and he has a family emergency, he might not have to show up, and there's nothing to hold him back. As opposed to the PSL, where you've got contracts, you've got players with salaries, it's a different structure. But when you go to these professional structures, that's your job. You sleep, eat, and live rugby. That's a whole ecosystem. And players that are coming from there, look at Brendan Zekenyedzi compared to Dion Kumalo. Dion Kumalo, pure class, straight from our Zimbabwean system. But Brendan Nzekenyedzi has been exposed to the Japanese system, European system, South African system, and when he comes through, he just comes a level above everybody else.
Wow, gaining 11 kilos of pure muscle.
And he did that in his 20s. That's why I say the under 20s are great. A big shout out to schools such as St. John's College. They now have like a high performance center. So the physicality of rugby players is really important around the age of 20. They now need to start eating right. They now need to start training right. They need to be very intentional about their careers. That's why the under 20 is the building block of any nation.
So how are we comparing to, say, South Africa and their program? We're looking forward to the under 20 league. What's happening in South Africa?
In South Africa, they're already semi-professional by under 18. Because a lot of the players are now playing in junior structures. I'll give you an example. There was the Sharks versus Lions game. The Lions game, just like how I like comparing to Dynamos, grew up idolizing Dynamos and Caps United. Before the Dynamos kick off at 3 o'clock, you had your under 13s and age group teams playing. These franchises in South Africa have age group teams that are made up of school players. So by the time we get to under 20, these are junior men that are knocking at the door of the Springboks. So we are still heavy yards ahead. I can even put my head on the block and be unpopular to say that if we were to get the South African under 20 national team to play against the current Sables structure, we will struggle.
The senior Sables.
The senior Sables, we will struggle because you have boys that are playing more professional rugby than our players are playing as a collective at one go.
Wow.
I think we once lost to an under-19 provincial side when we were preparing a couple of years ago. It's not because we're terrible players, but if you're playing in the Champions League every week and I am playing in a Division 1 league in Zimbabwe, when we meet, there's a huge difference between us.
So you're saying there should be more of an emphasis on provincial rugby after schoolboy, because the South Africans have that sort of system. Is that what you're leaning more towards?
Yes and no. We've had a traditional system. Growing up, at some point in time, I went to Churchill and some guys went to Prince Edward. There was a time when our coaches started incorporating schoolboys into league games. So we have had examples of the likes of Tichafara Makwanya. He started playing league rugby as a schoolboy. I also remember at football terms, that was a time when a lot of sporting teams were doing that. A lot of Dynamos players came from Churchill and they were high school players.
Yes.
And that is what we need for us to bridge the gap between an excellent school system and a professional system. So we can get the boys in schools to play on weekends in professional structures.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. And what about our ladies rugby? You know, also the ladies under 20 season is coming up. We have had results come in last year with the sevens. Our ladies struggled a little bit. So what's going on with our ladies rugby? How's that bridge being gapped, and especially on the 20 side?
I don't want to sound like an extremist, but I think it's a bit of a disaster at the moment. It's good to have the PR and say we've got the ladies as a part of this, but the structure really is not there.
They didn't do well last year.
They didn't do very well last year because one, the resources were not coming through. The structure of the union was not supporting them well enough, and I think the Sarajevo incident that brought about the restructuring of Zimbabwe rugby was the issue between the former president and the ladies. And having had a meeting with World Rugby officials that came to Zimbabwe, they actually said that their grants are available if you apply in time and intentionally to World Rugby to say, we would like to have 5 women's tournaments. World Rugby can fund these. And I think maybe for the first quarter we need to forgive the ladies in Zimbabwe until we start unlocking all of these
5
resources.
local women's tournaments.
We can actually get that. We can actually participate in African Cups, in European Cups.
Well,
We have to apply to World Rugby and get those grants.
Yeah, okay, so it's been a mainly administrative thing which has let Zimbabwean women's rugby down.
And the women themselves. I think they've also not supported each other a lot. And rugby is an expensive sport. Remember I said it's an amateur sport, so it's really heavily funded by sponsors. So you can get, big corporations like Mo's They would love to get, I tell you, they would love to get into women's rugby. But where there's chaos and where there's no structure, it sort of takes the investment away from them. So the moment they get a bit organized, or whoever it is going to be in charge of this, because there's no one at the moment, they need to make sure that the structure is sustainable enough to sit down with people like Mo's or people that, such as the banks that we're helping out, to say, help us go through a 5-year program. The same way that the under-20s have spoken to corporations to say, we have a 10-year program. So the moment you just have that, you have more women playing rugby. Already the numbers are up at junior level. But when we now start getting to under-20s and we now need to be more structured, a lot of that is not coming through. And that document and that modus operandi needs to be cultural.
Lady Cheetahs were top 3 in Africa about, 15 years ago?
Not really 15, I think, but 15, 12 years ago. And they slumps from 3 to 8, and now they have to qualify to be in the same circuit that they were. So it's great sometimes when you have your greatest players, but when they're gone, you need a structure to keep having young ladies coming up.
Yeah, and so looking ahead this year, are those grants and opportunities, are they still out for grabs? Was that window missed?
It's not quite missed. There's a union compliance that needs to be done. You need to make sure that your financials are correct, your structures are correct, and you don't want to have politics getting into the game. The window is still open. That's why I said I think we just need a little bit more patience. These grants are available, but before we start looking at World Rugby to come and rescue us, there's still a lot of I'll say easy wins that women can access. You can talk to a local company to sponsor T-shirts and things like that. For now, it's not expensive to help the ladies. It's not.
Okay. And so one thing we love to discuss in this show, Jeffrey, is the rumors. We already know that there's rumors that Eli Snyman in Italy might be coming back to the Sables, or Gary Porter as well, who's playing in Stormers in South Africa. So we know those rumors, but what do you think it would take to bring them into the Sables setup? Because as you said, it's mainly an amateur, rugby is mainly an amateur sport where these two are professionals. What would it take to appeal to those sort of characters?
I think I've got it on good authority that they've started some of these conversations years ago. Speaking to the Stormers and releasing some of their players. Initially, it was a financial issue. Can you pay someone enough to take them off a professional contract to be in camp with the Sables? But now that we have World Cup qualification and guaranteed that we're going to the World Cup, I think it's an easier draw card for a lot less money, because a lot of these players, just unlike football, a lot of these players are told that you will never play for this nation. So you have to go and play for Zimbabwe. And the World Cup is the penultimate.
Yeah.
So if I was to take Simba from the Ivory Coast where he's enjoying himself, and I say, Simba, here's a chance for you to then go and play against England. This is what everyone is dreaming of.
All right. Do we need to secure them during the course of this year, or even next year we can still be courting some of these players to come and play for Zimbabwe?
The courtship started 2 years ago. With some of these players. I'm sure you saw Bruce Houston coming through. He was an Irish prospect. He had played Ireland under 20s and was available. He had to play for those 20 minutes to make sure that we've locked him in. And a lot of these conversations are going on. You're going to see a lot of new names. And I know the local contingent in the rumor mill will be complaining, why is it that these guys are coming through? To be honest, we need a lot of these players that are coming from these superior structures because they fit in very well. Eli Snyman has been a rumor for a long time, and I think now he's one phone call away from coming through.
Oh, that's very close, very close.
That's my prediction.
That's your prediction. There's so many rumors at this time of year, especially heading into the new season, and after a great, some would say disastrous, some would say an unfortunate AFCON campaign for the Warriors. It appears that Emmanuel Jalai is very wanted by many countries, from Malawi to South Africa, and even though his contract expired with Dynamos on December 31st, he is a free agent and he's a free man. Simba, where could we possibly be seeing Jalai move to?
I think as long as he's still in Zimbabwe, he will still remain at Dynamos. And, with the new leaders coming in the executive, and also some who are said wants to be part of the ownership of Dynamos, I think for them the starting point will be having Emmanuel Jalai as the Dynamos captain, Dynamos player. And there have also been rumors that he might be going to Libya, but there's still rumors. But I foresee him playing at Dynamos this season.
You think so?
All right. Well, for me, his height is a disadvantage when it comes to the transfer market outside the country. Of course, he's such a fighter and he always plays so well, but that is one thing that might count against him. But for me, he's just been shining. If he gets a big contract, good for him. Yeah.
Good for him. But he's been approached, so it's a possibility that he could be playing outside the country.
And AFCON, he was weighing in all those challenges. He acquitted himself so well.
Yeah. Another thing in the rumours section is that Ronald Moyo, it's not a rumour, Ronald Moyo has actually parted ways, the former Chief Executive Officer of Scotland FC. They've parted ways. Simba, there's something that maybe has gone on here after winning, because Scotland won the championship last year in the title, so why would Ronald Moyo, now of all times, decide to part with Scotland?
And the possibility that he'll be moving to Zifa to be the new CEO. Remember, Yvonne Manuel left Zifa at the end of December, and Ronald might be moving that direction.
Oh, not back to Highlanders for the Centenary.
Not back to Highlanders. I think he's continuing going up, and now Zifa's CEO.
Now, Steve, it seems like you're very excited for the Highlanders, the Centenary. Can we expect some fireworks from Highlanders this season?
Yeah, well, Melikan Ngube leaving the club, that's a blow, but it's going to be huge. Thabo Senong, the South African, confirmed now as the head coach, means that they're going to be, I think, very well organised on the field. We're not sure whether Benjani's going to be there or not, and if so, what role he's going to play, isn't it?
Yeah, the rumor was that probably he was going to go in there as the technical director, but in their announcement, Highlanders didn't mention anything about him or even about the goalkeeper's coach, the team manager or others, or is it that the other guys that were there were going to remain in those positions? So we just wait to see when Highlanders makes further announcements in as far as those appointments are concerned.
Yeah, as we saw on social media, 2 zebras walked into the Bulawayo city centre on Sunday morning. We don't know at this stage how they got there, but some are saying for the black and white of Highlanders, this was a great omen of a fabulous centenary year.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. But Jeffrey, listen, hearing you speak, it sounds like you are somewhat invested, a Dynamos fan, are you?
I'm still finding my way, but Dynamos is difficult to ignore, and when they make these radical transformations, Dynamos will come through as a dark horse, and they don't like the character of Dynamos. They don't like watching certain teams coming through as champions. The fact that Scotland has got the championship and Dynamos, Chazunguza, with the rumored 7 million supporters, they're not taking that very well. So I think some major changes, and Dynamos could finish in the top 3.
Could we see possibly in Mavira Vira colours? We've had a couple of rugby guests on, the likes of Sean D'Souza, Hilton Muririki. They all say that they're Scotland supporters, so do you think you could be following suit, or is you still finding your feet?
The Scotland's jersey is quite nice. And look, they put in a new culture. The Scotland type of culture, just like Mo, it's a lot like rugby culture. So for now, I'm still Team Scotland, but I'm not very loyal. I'm most likely to go back to Dynamos.
Let's know in the comments what team you guys think Jeffrey should be supporting. But Jeffrey and Simba, thank you so much for sitting in at the Fan Zone with us. I truly and thoroughly enjoyed this episode. If you guys enjoyed this episode just as much as I did, make sure you like and subscribe. Comment your favorite part. Comment what you think of the Highlanders to expect for their centenary. Will Dynamos be back up at the scale, up the log table? We'll see how the season plays out. But head on over to fanzone.co.zw. If you are not predicting an AFCON, it's a great time. Enjoy it. Have fun. But other than that, we'll see you guys in the next video.